Chapter 3 How Dare the Sunrise? I have magical memories of our home in Uvira before we lost my sister to war. We had a big African palm tree inside our front gate and in the backyard, a banana tree, and my favorite tree called a madameme tree. It produced a fruit I loved, like a mango, rough and green on the outside, with reddish yellow flesh on the inside, tart and sweet. My brother Alex taught me how to climb the tree to get more fruit, and, of course, I fell out of the tree. I remember Deborah sitting beneath the tree, looking up at us in the branches. She was not big enough to climb, but you could see the desire in her eyes. She wanted to be up there with me. Come, I'll lift you up, I would call to her. Oh, no, you won't, Mom would yell from the kitchen window. One of my favorite memories is of my pet monkey Kiki, a playful little fellow who was about as tall as my knees and followed me everywhere. Deborah loved Kiki too, but she was so young. She didn't understand that she shouldn't tease him with bananas. She would show him a banana and playfully yank it back, and they would get into these banana fights, pushing and pulling the fruit back and forth. That never ended well. Our big yellow house was a kid heaven. It was so roomy that we could play hide and seek with our friends indoors without annoying the adults. The house was one story with high ceilings, a living room lined with cushy gray sofas, and a big dining room with a long wooden table. Deborah and I would eat our meals sitting directly on the table because we were too short to sit in the chairs. We had all the modern conveniences: electricity, running water, indoor plumbing, a bathtub, and a small stove. We didn't have hot running water. No one in our neighborhood did. It never even occurred to me that you could have hot water coming from the faucet. We didn't need it. It was almost always warm outside, and if the nights got chilly, Mom would heat up the water for our baths. My parents weren't wealthy. They moved into the house when they came down from the mountains, as the house had simply been abandoned. Many homes in Uvira had been left empty by families fleeing the conflicts that plagued the area. The homes belonged to no one. My parents saw it as a temporary living situation and began building a house of their own. But in the meantime, that yellow house became home. We had a radio, and I remember an educational UNICEF program for kids about different topics, like HIV. We also had a television, which was rare at that time. Dad was always calling Alex to adjust the antenna to get the best reception. Alex was small, the perfect height to fiddle with the antenna. Move it to the left, Dad would direct him from the sofa. Try to the right. Wait, hold it. Try it there. Alex would oblige, but not without rolling his eyes. I watched soccer, cartoons, music shows featuring British boy bands, and world music from Ireland, America, Burundi. There was a Saturday program called Adelo de Son, Beyond the Sound, which featured music from all over the world. This was the only way we knew which American songs were trending. Nelly, R. Kelly, Destiny's Child, Westlife, and Celine Dion were among the Western artists we liked. I could sing Nelly and Kelly Rowland's Dilemma word for word, but I had no idea what the words meant. The same went for any R. Kelly or Celine Dion song. As for Congolese music, I was the best dancer in the house. I made sure everyone knew it. I danced the popular hip-swinging Ndebola dance step by step, without missing a beat, starting at the age of 5. I wasn't afraid to perform for anyone willing to watch me. I also watched the Soccer World Cup with the great interest. I loved the game. My team was Brazil, and when my guys lost to France in 1998, I cried my eyes out. My parents and siblings all laughed at me because I was such a passionate fan. My parents sheltered me from many of the Civil War images that surfaced on TV. I didn't really understand war because my parents did such a good job protecting me from it. I did understand the need to be safe. I did not understand why people would want to target us. Some days, I would eavesdrop on conversations among my parents and other adults. I would hear them talking about war that was either going on at the time or that was about to start. That's how I knew if we were likely to flee soon. Sometimes I caught a glimpse of my father opening a closet.
Can I have your attention to this message is regarding eighth grade only. If you need to quarantine due to COVID exposure, you will be eating your lunch in the library all week. I meant auditorium all week. I'm sorry. You will be eating your lunch in the auditorium all week. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Sometimes I caught a glimpse of my father opening a closet that he kept locked at all times, and for a good reason. There were several guns in there. I didn't understand why Dad owned guns. He was not a soldier, and I have never seen him shoot anything. I know now that he wanted to protect us from war, but at the time, I figured he was keeping them for an uncle in the military. I had two uncles in the military, and they would often stop by the house with their friends to visit. I loved all of them dearly. They used to play with me and let me touch the stars adorning their uniforms. My favorite uncle was my mom's younger brother, Rumenge. My mother loved him deeply too. He was a tall, handsome man, like a movie star. He was kind and gentle. It was hard to picture him as a soldier. He was always playing and laughing with me. He brought me gifts whenever he visited, candy, money, clothes, and I cried.
Attention, camera 9, please report to 615. Camera 9, please report to 615. Thank you.
Sorry. I cried when he had to leave. I never knew what his job was in the military, just like my father. He never explained why he had a gun. For all I knew, our life was normal. I was a happy kid. To be sure, there were daily challenges. The electricity went off all the time, at random hours throughout the day and night. When it happened, you could hear the neighborhood erupt in one big, heavy groan. Then kids would go out in the streets and sell petrol to light lamps. Patrolly, they would call in a sing-songy voice from the streets. Patrol here. Kuya apa, we would reply. Come here. The back and forth chant would continue until the kids found the customer. If people weren't interested in buying the patrol, the kids would sometimes snap at them, telling them to drink it. Kunyanwai ayaw. When the electricity came back on, you could hear the neighborhood cheer and clap. My father was often away in those early years, working at different jobs to support the family, including a job in customs and immigration at the port. During this time, my Uncle Rumeng became like a second father to me, visiting often. The doors of our home were always open to uncles, aunts, cousins, friends, visitors. There were at least 3 cousins staying with us at any time. Privacy was not something that I knew. People came and went all day long. No one bothered to knock on the door. They just wandered in. The same went for traveling members of our tribe. Whenever they hiked down the mountains and crossed the river to get to the city, our house was the first one they saw. They would often come and stay to rest on their journey. It took them about 3 days by foot to get from the mountains to the city. Our house was like a landmark. People knew to look for this big yellow house with the green roof. Mom would invite them in and lay out blankets for them to sleep on the living room floor. They could stay as long as they liked. Mom was like a saint, friendly to everyone in the neighborhood, including the homeless, the troubled, random drifters. Everyone knew her by name, even the most obscure outcasts. A lady with swollen feet and a cloud of flies around her, a strange drooling man with a lisp. They would show up at our front gate and my mom would give them food. At Christmas and New Year's, she kept the gate open so that anyone could come in and have a meal of rice, meat, and beans. My mom grew vegetables in a garden, cassava, corn, beans. On the holidays, scruffy children would meander into our home along with homeless people. A typical kid who did not yet understand the world, I would say things about our odd guests like, Mom, that man smells. She would shush me. It doesn't matter if he smells. He's still a person. A person is a person no matter what, she said. You must do what you can to help people. What you do comes back around to you. It reminded me of the lyrics to a song I had heard in church while growing up. Goodness returns to you. Wrongdoing also returns to you. Choose which one you want, because it will come back to you. It always scared me. I thought, what if I'm not nice and nothing good happens to me? I was just beginning to learn about the generosity of our tribe. Eventually, I came to understand that there was a spirit of unity among my people, a deeply ingrained sense of helping those less fortunate than you because you could lose your own good fortune at any moment. My people knew that wealth could come and go. My family didn't always have enough food for ourselves for dinner, but we would help anyone who asked, and sometimes I would be sent to a neighbor's house to ask for help. What did you make for dinner? I would ask the neighbors, and they would send me home with food. We all looked out for one another. On those nights, when we didn't have enough food for dinner, I don't remember feeling upset about it. That's simply the way life was, and I figured it was the same way for everybody. My mom would make a joke and would laugh it off. She would say something silly or sarcastic, such as, Tonight, we can eat the word of God. Then, we would all entertain ourselves by playing cards in the living room. I never felt deprived. My mother was such a strong, wise, multitasking force. She literally chopped down a tree once while watching Princess, who was a baby at the time. She situated Princess over to one side and made sure she trapped the tree so it would fall the opposite direction. Mom never complained. To this day, I can never complain about anything in front of her. She will say, "Sandra, do you have to chop wood with a child on your back?" And that pretty much says it all.